We've got the privilege to have Troy and Stacy Hadrick here, and they're going to be telling us their story. So they're fifth generation rangers from the Watertown area, and partner with several restaurants in market their beef in Sioux Falls and some restaurants. They've got a passion for sharing their story here, so we're excited to hear their story and how they connect directly with those consumers in that way. So without further ado, we'll welcome them up.
Well, first off, I apologize that you're getting the B team today. Tim has been pretty sick your last few days, and so we got asked if we would come and fill in for him. And so we've been talking to him a little bit here lately, and he is extremely disappointed that he wasn't able to make it. So if you ever get the chance to meet Tim, he's a pretty dynamic fella, and we've really appreciated the chance to partner with him on all of this. So I did ask him a little bit about what he wanted us to share as well, and so you're going to get a bit of a blended presentation, I guess, on kind of our viewpoint of how this all came to be, and I'll share a little bit of how Tim views it as well. But usually the first question we get asked is, how did we get started selling our beef directly to a restaurant? And there was several things that sort of lined up, but essentially, coming towards the later end of COVID or kind of in the middle of COVID, we were all struggling. Restaurants were struggling. Producers were struggling to get cattle killed. We had cattle in Kansas that you couldn't get into the plants. The restaurant guys were really struggling with consistency and availability and pricing. And so through all of that, through a couple of ways, we actually just met these guys. And Vanguard Hospitality is who they are. And so Tim Meager has a couple other business partners. They're all South Dakota guys, but they are really good folks. And as we were visiting with them, and we weren't really seeking out any restaurants, we weren't trying to put this together, but just kind of sharing, I guess, as business owners, what we were all going through. And finally, after talking a little bit, we kind of looked at each other and said, well, what would it take to partner together? What would it take for us to get our beef to them that they could sell directly? And so we started going down that path and thinking about what would the logistics be. And it really, it ended up turning out really well, but there was a lot of things to get figured out on their end, on our end. How do you make this happen? And basically where we ended up starting was, I said, let's do 10 head. I said, we'll finish out 10 head for you. You have to take everything, though. I said, I don't have the ability to just send you a few ribeye steaks, and then I got a whole pile of other stuff that I got to figure out how to get rid of. I'm like, you need to commit to taking everything. We'll establish a price right off the get-go. You'll know what it's going to cost you. We'll know what we're getting. We'll work with the locker plants to get it cut how you want it cut, and we'll get it delivered down to you. And let's just see how it goes. And so that's what we did. And we tried to, think about all the logistics and how this would work. And we had to learn a lot about the restaurant industry. They had to learn a lot about the beef industry. But that's kind of what made it fun, too, and it really helped propel us through there. So the first thing we learned was the very first time we dropped beef off in Sioux Falls was that restaurants aren't set up to take 3 head of beef at a time. We pulled up with the pickup, had it stacked to the top and the back with boxes from the locker plant, which you get the call from the locker, hey, your beef's ready to go. Can you be here in 5 minutes to pick it up because we're full, right? You've all gotten those. Can you be here yesterday? So you drop everything, you drive there, drive straight to Sioux Falls. I don't have any place to put 3 head of beef. Our freezers aren't that empty. And backed up to the back door of Minerva's there in downtown Sioux Falls, and they're like, where are we going to put all this? I don't know. Good question. Well, so we hauled it in, and they found places to cram it, and that was kind of the first thing. It's like, most restaurants are built for the Cisco or U.S. Foods truck to show up once or twice a week, right? They make a few clicks on the computer. The guy shows up. They probably don't even talk to him. He just comes in the back door, puts it in their fridge or freezer, and he leaves. And the food's there. And so that was a big first step that we all had to understand and learn. in the meantime, I had a few more head coming to them, and I'm like, well, be prepared. There's more coming. And so luckily they have 3 restaurants in Sioux Falls. Well, 4, I guess, technically. So they own downtown, the Minervas, the original downtown Minervas, not the ones in the Ramcotas. They own Morty's Steakhouse, which is a fantastic white tablecloth, probably the best eating experience in South Dakota, if you ask me. They own the Grill 26 in Sioux Falls, kind of a bar, restaurant type thing. And then the Paramount Bar is downtown, and it's kind of connected off the side of Minerva's. So as of now, all 4 of those places serve our beef. We have JJ's Wine, Spirits, and Cocktails in Sioux Falls that has a little bit of a restaurant in it. They also serve our ground beef there now too. Double Barrel Steakhouse here in Henry, just west of Watertown, serves our beef at this point. But that was kind of the beginning of getting through, starting with Vanguard. And so we got those 10 head through, and then it gave us a chance to kind of step back. Okay, what did we learn from this? Well, we learned that we needed to have some on-site storage. We needed a walk-in freezer so that when the locker plant called and said, hey, your beef's ready to pick up, we didn't have to drop everything and drive to Sioux Falls, because they might not have room for it either. That was a big logistic thing we worked through there right off the get-go. We learned about, packaging. How many of you go pick up the locker plant, your beef, and what's it come in? Paper. But banana boxes, right? Whatever boxes they can find from the grocery store, right? You can't stack those. You can't, they're all shapes and sizes and everything else. And they were like, could you get some uniform boxes? So at least we don't have that much room to begin with, so at least we can stack it efficiently. And, could you maybe write on the boxes what's in it, right? Because the locker plant, what do? Just start piling it in, right? And so we worked through that. They wanted it vacuum sealed. Okay, that wasn't an issue, but what we learned, there's lots of different grades of vacuum seal bags, and some of them are better than others. And the last thing they want to do is start thawing this stuff out, and now it's leaking everywhere, right? So we talked about different size or different thickness of bags and some of that kind of stuff. So we worked through a lot of those logistics, but as we continued on, there were some other little things that really helped us all work together. And I would say the very biggest one right off the get-go was we were working together with them, and they wanted to make this work. It wasn't us going into a restaurant and saying, you should be serving our beef because I'm a nice guy and it was born in the zip code of 57438, right? Local food is great, and that effort is all good, and I understand that stuff, but a lot of times, a lot of people, what I hear them say is the biggest attribute about their beef is the zip code it's born in. There's more to that than this. I will tell you, people that want a really great eating experience don't necessarily care what zip code it was born in. They may think that along the way, and as they're getting, but as soon as they take that first bite, they're not thinking about a zip code anymore. They're thinking about, what's this taste like? Is this good? I paid quite a bit of money for it. It should be good. It should live up to my expectations. And so along the way, a lot of our conversation, and even before we delivered those first 10 head, was about, our goal was always about flavor. We had worked for, our goal starting back in 2010 was we wanted to improve carcass quality in our cattle. And the first time we ever finished out some cattle, we got data back in 2012. Our cattle were extremely average. We didn't have any primes. We were going 90% choice, 30% CAB acceptance rate, certified Angus beef. And I mean, that was industry average. There was nothing special about us. So we implemented a lot of technology on our end to increase that. By the time one day, now I'm having a conversation with Tim Meager, 12 years down the road, we're typically running 50 to 60% prime, sometimes better. We don't have any more selects. We have about 85% of our cattle now grade at least certified Angus beef or prime. So now we had a product that was ready to go into a white tablecloth restaurant from the get-go. And when we had those first conversations with Tim and his crew, that's the first things they ask. Well, what kind of beef do you raise? Well, here's 10 years worth of data. Don't take my word for it. They have a lot of people, I hear this from a lot of restaurateurs where people walk in and say, you should start buying beef from me. And they'll say, Sure, well, tell me about it. And they say, well, we eat it ourselves. We get it out of our freezer. It's really good. And that's the extent of their sales pitch. These guys are professionals. They're professional chefs, professionals at owning businesses. Running a restaurant is not easy. So you have to approach it as a professional as well. You better be able to talk about what you feed, why you feed it, how you do things year-round, how those cattle are going to grade, what do you expect that eating experience to be. We guaranteed the restaurant at least a high choice or prime. And we gave them the right to reject any meat coming in. And we've never had one kicked back to us yet. But that brings a lot of comfort to those guys. So one of that point is talking about sharing data, having that information. We learned from the restaurant what works for you guys. How do you want this stuff cut? Does it need to be fresh or can it be frozen? That was one of the first questions we had. They really wanted it to be fresh, and I said, I can't do that. They said, okay, we'll try the frozen. Then they've never looked back since. They're like, that's a non-issue to them. It can be frozen. They don't see any difference. The consumer doesn't see any difference. Let's freeze it so we can sit on it and do that. Learning from them about how much they go through. One of the first things we did, just trying to get a grasp on that, we met them in Brookings. We sat down with Dr. Christina Baker, who's the extension meat specialist. They brought in 3 years worth of sales data, and we looked at that and said, okay, how many head worth of tenderloins do they go through? How many head worth of ribeyes do they go through? Trying to wrap ourselves around how much meat they had. And then we took all of those cuts out of the carcass and said, what do we have left? We basically reverse engineered that carcass. So then us and them knew what we had left over after what they were traditionally doing and said, okay, what do we do with this stuff? So then their staff had a chance to go through and look at how are we going to handle that meat as it comes in. And they're lucky too, from the standpoint of it can go to a bar grill type setting. It can go into a white tablecloth type setting. It can be actually at a bar as like sliders or appetizers type things. So they had a lot of venues that they could kind of go through at different price points, but they needed to be prepared for that. So having those conversations back and forth was really important. Sharing that business information. I mean, we talk about kind of what some of our expenses are, our costs are, those types of things. I understand more now about what they're having to do in the kitchen to make this work, what they're dealing with. And if I know what their roadblocks are or what their challenges are, and they understand what I'm dealing with at different times, that goes a long ways too, because then you start to think, well, what can I do to help them? And, one of the challenges at the beginning after we got through those first 10 head, as I said, now it's, we're butchering in the fall. And it's February that next year, and I'm like, okay, I got to decide now where we got some calves going. I got to send some down to the feed yard in Kansas, and we're thinking about keeping some home for you guys. How many do you want? I don't know. They're sitting there thinking, geez, November's a long ways from now. Why would I have no idea what I'm going to need back then? I'm sitting there saying, I need to know right now. I can't make fat cattle like this overnight when you say, hey, I need some more, right? So that was a learning curve that we had to work through. Just that timing and what it takes to lead up to those types of things. Continuing, we talk a lot. I mean, we got the text group, the chat group, all sorts of things, because we want to know how their business is going. We want to know what they're hearing. Those are all very important. And I'm sending them pictures of stuff that I'm doing. They've been out to the place. They've seen what we do. That's what's really fun, is that we keep up with each other. We just got a text message from them, one of the owners, right before we walked on stage, and he sent us a picture. They're now selling some of our ground beef directly right out of Grill 26. They set up a little nice stainless steel freezer with a glass door in the lobby. And if you've enjoyed a Hadrick Ranch burger while there, you can take a package home with you. And we finally got that going. Those are the little things that we're working towards. And as we talk about this, we really grew this last year and probably got a little bit ahead of my skis. Now we have 2 walk-in freezers that we can store somewhere between 40 and 50 head worth of beef in there. But what we were pushing, that thing where we were making the restaurant take everything, Like we got to the point where they couldn't take some stuff anymore, okay? They were starting to drown in ground beef. They still wanted all the steaks, those types of things. So that's when we started saying, okay, I will continue to make steaks for you, but you got to help me get rid of some of the rest of the stuff. So that, they were actually very instrumental in bringing on JJ's. They were instrumental in they were actually in a grocery store in Del Rapids now. They made all of those connections for us because they know it's not about, for them, it's not about being totally exclusive with Hadrick Ranch for them in Sioux Falls. They know if they can help me get rid of some more ground beef and certain cuts in other places, that they're going to get more steaks out of the deal. It's in their best interest, in order to make this continue, that they help us find new partnerships and new outlets for different cuts. And then it gives us all a lot of ability to continue to grow through this. And so that to me was probably, and I think even for some people from the outside, they can't believe that, right? They can't figure out why is Minerva's, the Vanguard Hospitality Group, why are they trying to help us get our beef into other restaurants and find other outlets? It's because they'll be better off for it too. So then it kind of goes back to like finding these partners, right? You got to have a place that has talent in the kitchen, a place that wants to put up with a little extra effort. When they come get beef or we take it down to them, coming to get stuff from us at times, they rent a U-Haul, drive up to our place. We put 200 cases of beef in the U-Haul and then they drive back to Sioux Falls, right? Like other restaurants are hit and click on the US Foods website and a case of ribeyes from somewhere shows up. So those are things that all work good too. So, and then kind of like I talked about, continually looking for those new opportunities that make us better. We were able to actually get that freezer purchased that they're using in their store. Then they're helping push that out the door for us. And that was through a third partner that kind of helped make that all happen too. So those are all things I think, as we look over the last 4 years now, of why it's worked well and we're continuing to grow with them is just that with super open lines of communication, they have a big desire to make this work, and obviously we do too, and they're really pushing themselves. So they're making a big effort to learn more about agriculture, to learn more about the beef industry, to learn more about why pasture is a big thing and why we need to keep working on that and doing a better job with our soils. That is a huge, huge bit of emphasis for that restaurant group now. And they understand that every ranch is different and every ranch is going to do things a little different, and they're fine with that. But they're understanding more. So all this told, this last year, we kept 2 semi-loads of fat cattle in the state of South Dakota that went direct to restaurants or consumers last year. That a couple years ago would have went to Kansas. And we bought all that corn from the local feed mill. They rolled it. Used 2 local processors to get it butchered. Used a couple local companies that helped put in our freezer systems to make them work. Like, this money continues to stay in the state, and I think to me that's what's really exciting. I really liken it to thinking about, the beginning of the ethanol industry, where we decided, hey, let's not just ship all of our corn out of the state as a kernel of corn. Maybe there's some other things we can do about that. And we haven't done a good job on the beef industry of figuring out how do we take that model and try and do the same thing. And I think we're hoping that we're sort of laying some of those foundations to show a roadmap of how you can do that. I don't think we're not gonna keep all the feeder cattle here in the state, but I think we can start to keep some. And we've talked to other producers that are trying on this path, and we try and share as much as we can. The restaurants are trying to share as much as they can with other restaurants, and we hope little by little that this thing continues to grow. So
I think.
There you go.
I think we want to take some questions because we felt some of you may have came to this session. Yeah.
What is the inspection process like?
The inspection process for the beef that we get from the locker plant, so we're going to both a state inspected and a federal inspected plant. Yep. So. Okay,
so on a local, say I take it to my local butcher shop, now they just have a state inspector there, I think. I don't know, I haven't delved into it. But now, would they have to get a federal inspector to have that local butcher shop federally inspected?
So your question is, if you go to a state inspected facility, if you can then, and you can sell it in state then. So if you, there's some other rules, but if you don't go, you can't ship it outside of the state.
Oh, okay.
Yep, but it should be state inspected, yes. Yep, it has to be. Yeah, good question. We can talk more.
Can't have those packages that say not for sale on them. You
Yeah.
can't take those to the restaurant.
That's illegal. Yeah.
Where are you going with yours right now? What federal plant are you using?
We're getting processed at Economy Meat Market in Bath is state inspected, and our federal inspected plant is the Meat House at Andover. They're fairly new. 2 years they've been in business?
Yeah, probably 2 years this fall they've been open.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, yeah, we had to switch to 2 because we were doing more volume. And then knowing we wanted to start shipping some, we needed a federally inspected plant as well. Yeah.
Yeah. What else? Go ahead.
How does this partnership improve your operation?
There's a multiple ways. We, like Troy said, we never set out to do this, right? This relationship developed. We knew that the quality of beef that we had, and we knew that we could do some things, but to be honest with you, like to say that we are in the local foods movement in South Dakota were words I never thought would come out of my mouth. It's not a bad thing, it's just something that we never really thought. It's certainly, adding this enterprise is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. Picking up meat, sorting meat, labeling meat, keeping track of it, getting it delivered, like it's a whole nother enterprise. But it's been profitable for us, for sure. It's set us on a trajectory that's helped us think about other things in our business plan and how we're going to develop it.
Yeah, just from a financial standpoint, we negotiate the price off the get-go, like in the spring with the restaurant guys, and then I know all those cattle going through that system are going to get that price. So I don't have to hedge those cattle anymore. They're already hedged. So I don't use the board as much as I used to. So that's made a big difference. And now, I mean, we're taking about 250 acres farm ground and putting it back to grass this year. Working with Ducks Unlimited with those guys. And we really feel like this is a better future for us, knowing we have some different outlets, knowing that some of our calf crop can go that direction and doesn't have to rely on National or Tyson or Cargill, and that's pretty fun too. So we feel like it's a good step for us, and we're excited about it. But we know it's going to take more labor too. So we're hoping we have a college kid coming home soon.
Was there a question over here first? Yeah. So that's where we go to our state inspected facility is at Bath, and then our federal is at Andover. Yeah, it's they've been very good to work with. We're very fortunate.
Yeah, the challenge is Bath is a 80-mile drive for us, and Andover is a 100-mile drive for us, and that's where we're really struggling. It takes a full morning to haul cattle to Andover and back, and how do you feed in the morning and still get that done? And they want them there at 8 a.m. type thing, and it's not so bad when you're hauling them in August and September. Sometimes it's not so much fun when you're hauling them in November and December, and you're out there in the way dark and the way cold and not knowing how the roads are going to be, and you got a trailer load of cattle you got to get over there. So that's one of the downfalls of the deal, I would say, is how far we have to go to get them processed. So.
We've loaded a lot of cattle in the dark.
What's different about picking your harvest date on cattle that are going to that have a system versus if you're sending them to their guy?
Now we're getting into the nitty gritty, right? Yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah.
If you got cattle standing down in Kansas in the feed yard that I haven't even seen them now for the last 6 months, and feed yard manager just puts them on the list, and we know that they're going to go on the grid, and knock on wood, the last couple of years it hasn't been an issue. For us, we're making appointments for however many we think we're going to butcher in the fall, and we're doing this in like January, February. Like we've got to get all of those appointments on. So you tell me when they're going to be ready to go. Yeah, down to the week or 2 week period. That's a challenge. The first year was hard. I felt like I was sending green cattle. So then this last year when I made appointments, I added a little bit of time. So I thought we'd get a little more weight on it. Well, then we had a pretty warm, open winter. and pretty nice spring. Cattle gained well, and now I was like, man, I wish those appointments would hurry up and get here. And so that's a huge challenge, and you don't have much flexibility on getting those appointments moved around. So it takes a lot of foresight, a lot of estimating, and you got to be good with those decisions and go. And I want to be fair to the locker plants too, right? I don't want to book a bunch of stuff and then have to cancel. And I ran into a little issue that way this year, and I hate it. I feel bad for them, and I kind of got a little bit stuck and had to do some things different, and so it's a challenge. But there again, working with those guys, I think, and talking to them very frequently helps, so you can all sort of be on that same page. So, yeah.
Kind of right along with that line, how do you keep a steady stream of the ages of cattle?
Yeah, the steady stream of ages of cattle, having them ready over a 6-month period of time, yeah, it is a challenge. We have a couple different ones that we put through the system. You look at your herd and your calving differently too. Like, we aren't as tight in our calving ranges as we used to. We'll keep some that are later.
Well, yeah, some of those younger calves, it's like, okay, I got a home for them because I need to stretch this out a little bit more. The other thing we did when we're feeding pen of steers and pen of heifers at home was, we're pushing those steers a little harder, obviously. I kind of left all the heifers together, those feeder heifers with the replacement heifers, and they're kind of just on a nice little growing ration. And then about the time it's getting breeding season, or later into the spring for sure, early summer, late spring, I took those heifers and dumped them in with the steers, and now we got them on a hotter ration. And so they're a little behind the steers, and now they're coming up. We breed more, we AI more heifers, and we've done this for a while, but we AI more heifers than we know we were going to want to keep. They get one crack at AI, one chance with the bull, and then it's bred or dead around our place. So we're pulling those, we're ultrasounding in August, getting those open heifers on feed. And so those are coming up kind of November, December time frame when they're finished. So we've built a little bit of a system where we feel like we got some cattle ready in July, and then sprinkling them out kind of through November and December. But I wasn't going to, everybody says, I suppose you got to start fall calving. Nope, not going to fall calve. I'm not set up to run 2 separate herds like that. Really don't have any desire. So we've just tried to find ways to either speed up or throttle back, pull the throttle back on some and just get them on different variations. So when you come out and look at a pen of cattle that we're finishing, they're ugly, right? I mean, it's soup to nuts out there. You're like, boy, that one could go next week, and this one over here is, I don't know when he's ever going to be done. So as a cattle guy, you sit there and go, God, I wish these things looked better. But in your brain says, no, you're doing this right, and it's worked well. There's one in the back corner here.
Can you compete in price with the commodity market? I mean, your small slaughterhouses cost more than the big backyard plants. You have to have a large premium. Does they pay you a large premium to make this work, or can you compete with?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, how do you compete? Because, the cost to get them processed, we're not efficient compared to what Tyson costs them and those kind of things. And you're absolutely right. We do have a higher cost. And so, our goal, and we can have it as a goal, but it's not our goal because we'll never meet it. We're not going to compete with Walmart. We're not going to compete with Hy-Vee. If you want to find cheaper beef, you're absolutely going to be able to go find cheaper beef, and you're not going to have to look that hard to go find it. Having those restaurant guys understanding, though, the quality that they're getting is what makes it more valuable, okay? Knowing what we're doing on our end to get them that high prime, that's hard for them to get. And you can get it, but if you're starting to compare apples to apples, that beef's not cheap either, right? So when you start to look at that, we're not as far off as some people probably think, but we're not. If you want cheap ground beef, go to Walmart because you're not going to get it from me. Ours is going to be more expensive for sure. So we compete on quality and flavor and taste. And that's what our niche really is.
We also have a story, right? Because that's not necessarily what you're getting with your Walmart or your Hy-Vee. Like you can touch the people who raise your beef. And I think a lot of times we discount that, right? Or we don't sell that enough. And marketing is what it's about. And that is what takes time. Like our whole 2-hour car ride over here was how we were setting ourselves up to market, you know, and situating ourselves. And it takes time, and you've got to get paid for that. And that's part of the piece. Lyle, you had another question?
Well, the question I have is, I know, and you know that occasionally you're gonna have some that might be on the lower end of the choice that you deliver, and some that are gonna be high, you know, maybe a higher prime. So, do you differentiate, number one? Number two, how do you set the price?
Yeah, so the question is, what do we do with something that maybe grades a little bit lower? And then how do we set those price on that stuff? So this is a challenge. We cannot say, because there's no grading in either of the plants we go to. They couldn't, and the only one it could be at would be in Andover. And it's totally unaffordable for them to have a USDA grader come in and do a couple of head. There's some remote grading options that are coming online, and they look pretty promising. We're hoping maybe we can get that. But today, our beef is ungraded beef. And when you tell people it's ungraded beef, a lot of people think it sounds like uninspected beef, which sounds like, you know, is it going to be green when we open it up and those kind of things. But it's ungraded beef, so we can't say what it is. What we've done on that end is we have the locker plant, when they split that thing between the 12th and 13th rib, they take a look at it. Sometimes they're sending us pictures. So we're trying to do our best on quality there, and we say, you know, we're guaranteeing high choice or prime. And if we see something like that comes through that we don't think meets that, it's probably going in our freezer. Or we separate it out, and we got somebody say, hey, you want a little bit cheaper stuff, we'll go that way. We've got something there. But that's basically how we've handled it up till now. And then it's like a lot of other businesses, you know, if somebody's not happy with what they get, knock on wood, we haven't had to deal with that. But we tell people, if you got concerns, you didn't like it, let us know, and let's talk about it, and we'll work through it. So. How do we set the price? Well, that kind of goes back to with the restaurant guys. We sit down in the spring and say, here's what it's going to be for the year. And I kind of look out, I look at the futures market, kind of look at what our costs are going to be. And then we set that, and we basically have a gentleman's agreement between us that if some issue really happens on their end that changes for them, or we have a big issue on our end, that we'll revisit it if we have to. But otherwise, that price is good for the year. And that's worked out really well.
Yeah, and we figured out our costs. There's easy costs you can figure out, right? Like how to get it there, how to get it back, how to deliver it. Like all of those things you can build into it. So we factored all that in. Yeah,
and we kind of know how much time it takes now, too. I see some producers selling, halves and quarters and those kind of things, and I look at what they're charging, and I'm like, you're going to do a lot of extra work, and you can get more than that just dropping it off at the sale barn. I mean, I think you really got to know what your product is, and then what it's worth. And, at that point, I don't think any of us are looking for extra work most days. So I would say if you're going to go into it, like, don't be afraid to charge what you need to charge. And if that's too much, then you're going to have to look at doing something different. But.
Okay, do we have time for one more? Okay. You.
So when you guys sell to like a steakhouse like Minerva's or something, do they require you guys to like raise a certain breed of beef, like Black Angus, or do you guys raise like Shars, Hereford, stuff like that?
Good question. So the question was, does the restaurant group require us to have a certain breed of cattle that we breed to, utilize and market? No, they do not require us to do that. We do have Black Angus. We do an extensive genetics program to achieve, like Troy's saying, the top choice and prime beef. Like we choose and mate each individual animal. We do artificial insemination. So we know that we're setting ourselves up to have that higher quality product that we are claiming that we raise, because we know that we are. I mean, we have all of our kill data back too from Kansas of their steer and heifer mates, so we know what what they're doing, and we're saving the best for home to sell directly. So, but no, there are restaurants that do ask that. Ours more are wanting to market and help us market our name, Hadrick Ranch. So you'll see that if you go to their restaurants. You'll see that with any of the producers that they use, down to the people they buy their onions from, to the beef. So that's more of what we're working with restaurants who want to help have a mutual relationship like that.
I don't care if the cows are purple. I mean, if they're purple and grade prime, I got a home for that beef.
Yeah.
And here again, people aren't thinking about the color of the hide when they take that first bite and go, wow, that's a great steak. Honestly, they don't care at that point. If you feed them a piece of shoe leather, then they're not gonna, you can't make up for shoe leather by telling them a great story about how you were there the day that calf was born and you nurtured it and brought it into your house, and they're gonna like, that's a great story, and that's a really terrible piece of meat. So our goal has always been, we're gonna compete on flavor, and that's our specialty, is flavor. A lot of people have a lot of other parts of their story. Ours is flavor.
I think we're out of time and we're getting into lunch, so I'm sure some of you are knowing that. First, I want to say we have an internship. I see some of you students in here. We have a summer internship. Actually, and I know some of you in the Lake area need to do like a spring internship. We take you in the spring. And this isn't just, come out on the place and work. As you can hopefully get from spending the little bit of time with us, we care about helping people advance where they want to be with their businesses and goals that they have. So that's how we treat our students too, is you're not just a worker. We want you to come in and learn about other things than just putting up fence. And find us at hadrickranch.com is our website. So check that out too. And then we'll be around for a little bit. So if you have any other questions or want to pick our brains, don't hesitate. This isn't a secret sauce. Yeah. Hadrick is HADRICK. So hadrickranch.com.
And then I encourage you to stop into those restaurants.
Yeah.
That Tim's a part of, Maury's, Minerva's, Grill 26. They'd love to talk to you. And just go see what the experience is that they're offering. I think you'll be impressed. So
Thanks for coming.
thanks, guys. Appreciate it.